Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Roth alongside Phil Duvall. Say hi, Phil.
Hi, everybody!
So today, this may come as a surprise to our audience, but there is actually someone helping us plan this, right? There's actually someone pulling our strings and maneuvering us like the puppets that we are.
I think there's a reason why he likes to go unnamed.
All right, I won't name him yet.
But I think there's a reason. I think there's a reason why he likes it. I think he's like, people don't need to know that I am responsible in any way for this.
But the important thing for you to know, audience, is that he exists. And he has given us a new feature here at Second Breakfast that we will be featuring on some Tuesdays. Don't know how often. Feel free to supply us with these, similar to a mailbag question, but not quite. We call these burning questions. And today's...
Can I say something really quick? You're going to ask us, how is it different from a mailbag question? My first response to that would be, shut up.
Yeah.
Okay? We're doing what we can. Secondly, it is not a mailbag question. These are generally questions that are sort of our nameless, shifty, behind-the-scenes director feels are burning questions in our culture, in our film culture, and he chooses them and brings them to us. They're not necessarily mailbag questions in the sense that questions you have asked. That's really the difference. They're more the questions. It's sort of like that book, Everything That You Ever Wanted to Know About Movies, but were afraid to ask. So there you go.
Just like that book.
I didn't want to say the name of the real book. It's
that
embarrassing.
Exists in the world.
It's embarrassing.
Oh, right.
I don't want to talk about that thing with the S and the E.
What's the name of the Reverend in the Scarlet Letter? Okay.
I think he's like Horny Pants. Isn't he like Reverend Horny Pants? Like he is it's Dinsdale.
Dinsdale. Right. Okay.
I believe it's Arthur Dinsdale. But I call him Reverend Horny Pants. Because get it together, man. You have a job to do.
Okay. So, today's burning question is Alfred Hitchcock the greatest horror movie director of all time?
Wow. That's a good question.
Do
you want to go first or shall I?
You go.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
No. It's ridiculous. This is the dumbest question. Let me tell you why it's dumb.
Yeah.
Because Alfred Hitchcock doesn't make horror movies.
That's the problem. Yes, absolutely true.
Alfred, okay, but here's the funny thing is it's a good question, and here's why, even though it's just completely easy to answer, is that I remember growing up thinking that Alfred Hitchcock was a horror director.
Me too.
Me too. In my mind, and if you think, if he had made a bunch of movies like Psycho, for instance, and Psycho was the tamest one, then you might start to consider him a horror film director.
Yep.
If you just took Psycho and Birds and said those are the tamest of his films, and they took him off into this direction, and I will also say that I think Psycho and Birds specifically set up a lot of tropes that horror movies would use. It's like he made two movies that weren't horror movies that are some of the best templates for horror films around.
Yeah, both Psycho and The Birds, hugely influential both within and outside of their genres.
Yes, but I mean, they if you were to use movies like this is an interesting question to me, because if you were to really think about the modern horror film, and we talked about this before, but full disclosure, like I don't watch a lot of horror movies or haven't. I'm starting to watch more of them, but I feel it's never going to be like, it's like when I try to listen to hip hop, okay? Like it really is. I am an educated white man, and so it is my job to pretend that I like hip hop and understand the new poetry of the people. But the reality is I don't. And I have friends that are like, you're a music fan, listen to this, and I'll buy it. Like I have some Roots CDs and some Mos Def and some like Kanye and Nas, and I'll listen to them, and I'm like, this is really good. Anyways, back to my, blues singer.
Back to Dylan.
Back to Dylan, or back to like Blind Willie McTell, or back to like, Mississippi John Hurt. And it's like, I don't get why I'm like that, but it's true. I try to like him. And I think that's sort of what my deal is going to be with horror movies is maybe I'm wrong, I can like certain ones of them. Like there's certain rap albums that I do straight up like, but by and large, it's not my genre. But I grew up thinking that like Hitchcock was terrifying, and he was this
Yep.
guy. That's what I was taught to believe. And his
Yes.
movies are scary, but he's not a horror film director.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I think just real quick to talk about your relationship with the horror genre. You might find, and I won't say you will, but you might find what I found with the Western genre. The Western genre, my dad tried to get me into because it was his favorite genre growing up, and I was like, no, and I wouldn't watch westerns. I watch any other kind of movie with him, but
Right.
I wouldn't watch
Right.
westerns. But of course, I mean, you eventually see a western here and there, and I was like, oh well, I liked that movie, but I don't like the genre. I like this movie too, but I don't like the genre. And at this point, there are just too many westerns for me to say I don't like the western genre, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some
Yes.
of my favorite movies of all time are
westerns.
westerns, right?
Yeah.
So
That's funny because I openly say I love the Western genre, but I don't like a lot of Western movies. But it's just I love the idea of it.
nice.
And I think that's the problem with horror films is the genre. Like there are horror movies that I love, but the genre, it's like, do I really want to be scared and grossed out right now? That's the
Fair.
problem for me.
That's fair.
Andy, who's the greatest horror film director of all time?
So here's the problem with answering that question. I can't think of a purely horror film director who deserves to be in the conversation. The two that
Got
jump
one.
into my mind,
Yes.
the two that jump into my mind are Wes Craven and John Carpenter.
Yeah, I think it's Wes Craven, but go ahead, continue. I mean, I think Wes Craven to me is the answer, but I don't know Dario Argento, and I don't know like all these friggin' Hammer
sure.
filmmakers and all these genres.
Interestingly, although I love his movies, or at least some of his movies, I'm not going to go with George Romero.
No, because he's not a good director.
Fair.
But
I think I agree with you. I think it's Wes Craven.
tell me about John. Give me your John Carpenter argument. It's because of Halloween, right?
It's Halloween. It's Prince of Darkness. It's In the Mouth of Madness. Village
yeah.
of the Damned.
Yeah. In the Mouth of Madness is terrifying.
Yeah, The Fog. Like these are. Did I say The Thing? Like these are horror movies. You know.
Yeah.
But he also has Escape from New York, which is not a horror movie. He also
No,
has.
I don't think horror film director. Wait a minute, hold on, Andy. I don't think horror film director has to just be that you only ever made horror movies. I mean, I think
No. I understand that, and I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm not saying that. What I am saying is he is known enough for other things that I have trouble thinking of him as a horror director. Because you've got the Philadelphia experience, you've got Experiment, you've got Big Trouble in Little China, you've got Starman, the boy who could fly, you've got They Live.
He made The Boy Who
which
Could
is not
Fly,
a
that was
horror
him?
movie, right?
he made The Boy Who Could Fly.
He did.
Wow.
Oh no, he didn't. He was an actor in it. His filmography isn't
So wait a
as
minute.
well organized on Wikipedia as it could be.
Here's the argument for Wes Craven, right?
Say again?
Here's the argument for Wes Craven.
Oh,
Okay. Who has made a ton of bad movies.
Yeah.
He created the most influential horror movie of the 80s and the most influential horror movie of the noughts. Or of the 90s, I guess.
Interesting.
But he made Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger, most influential thing of the 80s, unquestionably more influential than Jason. Just Freddy Krueger, the most influential. And then he made Scream.
Yeah. No,
I mean,
I don't.
He made Scream in the year something or other. Scream came out in
96.
I'm annoyed that I
Scream
can't
in
find
96.
Okay, maybe. So I think of the 80s and the 90s, he made the most. Yeah, 96. He made the most influential horror movie of the 80s and the most influential horror movie of the 90s. So to me, he also made a very scary but not good version of The People Under the Stairs.
Yes.
Oh.
So I agree with you. I think it's Wes Craven. The only problem that I have with your argument, and it's not a problem with your argument, is that at the end of the day, Nightmare on I agree with you that Jason is not in the conversation because Jason is an offshoot of Michael Myers, right? But I think that the most influential horror movie of the 80s might be Halloween, which was released in the 70s. Like, just because I just don't think that Nightmare on Elm Street, as many sequels as it spawned, if you look at the influence that it has on other movies, I just think the slasher genre that came out of Halloween is more influential than Nightmare on Elm Street.
That's fair. I guess I just think both of those movies, I think, just pure iconography. Am I still on the screen? I just moved myself. Okay.
You're good.
Pure iconography. I just think those two movies sort of created these pictures of something that were. But you're probably right. I think we need to mention a couple guys. I think we need to mention James Whale, who directed the original Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein.
Indeed.
And Todd Browning, who directed the original Dracula, and directed Freaks and the original Dracula.
Nice. Yep.
I think they need to be mentioned. I have never seen one movie by a guy named Dario Argento, but everyone that are film geeks apparently tell me that he is the real deal.
See Suspiria. But again, like a lot of these movies, they're more horror than, say, Hitchcock. But a lot of his movies are sort of like thrillers with gore, if that makes sense.
Can I say something about that before we go, though, by the way?
Yeah.
Is that I want to, or maybe this, I don't know if we want to end on this note or where we want to go with it, but like, the thing about Hitchcock is that he may not have been a horror movie maker, but he did consistently and continually make movies that he made legitimately suspenseful films that were really good. And I think suspense is a genre that is virtually non-existent right now.
I agree.
And it is an amazing genre.
Yes.
Like, I think when you say they don't make them like they used to, we're almost always wrong. But I think when it comes to suspense, like, when do they make them like that? Where are there, like, name suspense movies? I mean, there's some. I'm not saying they don't exist. But
think about it this way. Name a suspense movie of the past decade that was a big hit that does not have, that you couldn't also call an action movie or a horror movie.
Yeah.
I honestly can't do it.
Right.
Audience, I would love, please.
The last decade.
Let us know.
Oh, man.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
great suspense movies. Would you call Inception suspense or action? Would you call Inception suspense or action?
I wouldn't call it suspense.
Interesting. What about Memento?
There are suspenseful moments, but I mean
then how are we understanding suspense then?
Strangers on a Train.
No, so how are we understanding suspense? What is our understanding of suspense?
A movie that is about the suspense, right? Strangers on a Train is about these two men who have this sort of battle of wits, right? Inception is about exciting things happening. It's a man on a mission thing. It's basically the Dirty Dozen inside somebody's mind, right?
Yeah. I keep thinking of all these, well, I guess. But no, I don't know. I think you need to watch Inception again because I think that it's not just an adventure or a Dirty Dozen.
I'm oversimplifying it, and I admit that. But in terms of if we're talking about genre, that's what I mean.
There's a mystery at the heart. I think there needs to be something. I think there needs to be a mystery involved.
I agree.
And I think there's a deep mystery in Inception, and Memento might fit in that category actually of suspense.
You know what? Yes.
Every other movie I'm thinking about is from at least 10 to 15 years ago. I'm like,
what
about? That's right.
I mean, and even when you go back 10, 15 years, it didn't match the output of the heyday of Hitchcock. You've got Rebecca with Otto Preminger, you know.
Do you think the Code has something to do with it?
Say again?
Do you think the Code has something to do with it?
The Hays Code?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know what I'm referring to, if you ever wondered why movies didn't ever have the F word in them, it's not because people didn't say them. It's because there was an actual What? People just started saying the F word in the 70s. One more reason the baby boomers have ruined everything.
No.
No, what the Hays Code was, and I don't remember when it came out, or how, but basically there was a morality code that
Yep.
films had to follow to be able to be put out in wide release. That included they couldn't use certain language, they couldn't actually show people having sex, they couldn't show people sleeping in the same bed, and so you had all these famous things of fading away to black, and people waking up the next morning, and they didn't have people using this language. But I'll tell you, man, and as someone who is a huge fan of profanity, I love it. I love profanity. There is something really spectacular about movies that were forced to follow the code, in the sense that the way they were able to tell a story with those restrictions. And I'm wondering if Suspense wasn't allowed to use violence or gore, and wanted to talk about scary things, or wanted to scare you and startle you, with the understanding they weren't going to be able to just show you like someone getting their head clubbed in or something like that.
Right, so they had to be smarter, which is crazy, because why would you want to make a movie that's smart? You know what? Film noir. Film noir is another genre that's sort of fallen by the wayside, and I think that many of one genre falls into the other, right?
I don't care who you are or where you are or what you think about anything. If you watch the movie Double Indemnity, you will like it.
It's true.
I don't care. It's black and white. It's from the 40s. It's a suspense movie. It's film noir. I don't care if you're a movie snob. I promise. If you're not a movie snob, watch Film Indemnity or Double Indemnity. I watched Double Indemnity when I was like 17, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't. I promise you. And this is a famous movie for like basically. It basically does. If the code hadn't been around, it would have just been like bad language, everybody's doing it, and all sorts of violence.
Yes.
Because that's what the movie needs. And the writer Billy Wilder and IAL Diamond find a way. IAL Diamond and Billy Wilder were the writers, and they find a ways around all of it.
Yeah.
Or through it, because it conveys the violence and the sex and the duplicitousness and the griminess. Oh my gosh.
Fred McMurray.
Oh,
he's good.
If you ever thought
so good.
He was like, ho, 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 absent-minded professor, father knows
Right?
best. It's
Oh,
like,
man, you're not...
My three sons, no.
Right. If you want to get whiplash, watch this, and then or watch, The Nutty Professor, and then this flubber to this. The real quick before we say goodbye, the Hays Code from 1930 to 1968. That
Wow.
explains literally everything about 1970s cinema.
It really does. It
I mean,
really does.
literally everything.
It also explains why, even though Easy Rider is a very bad movie, people were amazed by it.
It's fair.
Because it basically had drug use and sex and violence in it.
Yes.
Because it was like 1969, and people were like, oh my gosh. Now you watch Easy Rider, and you're like, I mean, this is the most incoherent, boring, like, non-linear thing that ever happened.
True.
Like, with a not bad soundtrack, let's be honest.
Yeah, that's fair. So we went pretty far afield there, but that's our answer to the first burning question. No.
No. I have a question for you.
Yes.
What is one horror movie you think I need to see in the next week, and I will watch it?
Oh.
One horror movie for Phil.
Let's see. Let's see.
Oh God, I'm terrified. I've got one for you, by the way.
No. I'm not gonna kill you. Are you familiar with You're Fine, You're Fine?
Go ahead.
Are you familiar with, so you've seen Rosemary's Baby, you've seen The Thing, you've seen, have you seen the original The Omen?
Oh gosh. I've seen parts of it?
Watch it. That's your assignment.
I'll watch The Omen. Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Because I want your opinion of this guy as a director.
Okay.
See House of a Thousand Corpses. I want to know what you think about Rob Zombie.
I shall do my best.
Because Rob Zombie is a popular guy. I mean, he's more popular as a musician, I think. But he is making horror movies solely.
Yeah. All right.
And if you get through House of a Thousand Corpses, I'd love to know what you think of Devil's Reject. Those are the only two of his movies I've seen. And he has an appreciation for the genre, but a lot of people are not liking his remakes of the Halloween movies, and a lot of people do not like him. But he is an erstwhile I am making horror movies guy. That's what he's doing.
Sure.
And House of a Thousand Corpses was a horror movie that inexplicably I saw in the theaters, and then was like, "Why did you do that, Phil? And why did anything ever?" When the lights went down, I was like, "Why?
Why am I here? What am I doing? I've made bad choices.
Get me out of here! Get me the hell out of here!"
I've made a terrible mistake.
I immediately regret this decision.
Okay, so audience, you heard it here first. We've given each other homework for the next week. I will do my best. Phil, do your best, and we'll reconvene next Tuesday and let each other know what we thought.
That's easy for me. You have a hard one.
Fair.
Okay.
Alrighty. That'll do it for today. This has been another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Roth. That's Phil Duvall. We'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.